Don't keep your money in a bank account. It's a terrible way to grow your wealth. If you want to skyrocket your wealth and have millions and millions of dollars down the road, bank accounts are a terrible place to do that. So today I want to walk you through a little bit of 5 alternative areas you could put your money to earn way more than you get from a bank account. But before I get to those 5 things, I want to talk about a few reasons why keep it in a bank is such a terrible idea. First of all, when you put your money in a bank account and you're making what, 1%, 2%, even if you put it in a money market right now, it's paying 4%, that interest is significantly lower than what you could get from other investments. Now you might be thinking, well,
Brendan, why do I care that my investment's only earning 4% versus 8%?
or whatever you could get from other things? It's really reduced risk. Sure, it's less risk to have your money in a bank account because, you know, there's insurance on it, FDIC and all that. But what are you giving up? The opportunity cost is what I'm alluding to here. If you're making 2% on your money versus 8% on your money, check out this graph that shows the difference into a savings account making 2% compared to an 8% interest. This is the difference over time. It's $1 million different over the life of that investment. It's dramatic because the opportunity cost of getting 2, 3, 4% versus 8, 9, 10, 12% is drastic. I'm gonna explain a little bit how you can get consistently 10, 12, 15% on your money. But first, a couple more reasons why bank accounts are terrible. 1, inflation. Inflation today is at like 3, 4, even 5%. In the past few years, it's been even higher than that, which means even if you are making 3% on your money in a savings account, you're likely going backwards. Your money is getting worth less every single year. And so you're not building wealth, you're losing wealth by keeping it in a bank account. And then the last reason why a bank account is dangerous is it creates a false sense of security and leads towards complacency and inaction. When I was a kid, high schooler, I used to play Monopoly a lot. In fact, there was a summer where my buddy Boone Greenlee, shout out to Boone and I played Monopoly every single day for a summer. We played like 100 games. We just loved it. And here's what I found in playing Monopoly. When I had lots of money in front of me, I played worse than when I had no money. It's like a football team, right? When's the best plays of a game of football? It's when they're down by 5 points and there's 30 seconds left in the game and they gotta go 90 yards. That's when teams play well. When you're down to the wire, when you're on your last dollar, that's when teams play well. So when you're flush with cash in a bank account, you tend to make poor financial decisions. 1, you buy things, assets, or liabilities you shouldn't buy because you're like, oh, I have money. And 2, you don't take action at all because you feel really comfortable like you're doing just fine. So keeping your money in a bank account, not only is it financially a terrible idea in terms of opportunity cost because of the low interest that you're making, but it's also just a terrible idea in terms of your mindset around money and around growing it. Now, I'm not saying get rid of all your money. Bank accounts have a place in life, right? Keep your reserves there, keep enough to survive if you had to go a few months without making any income. But let's get your money working harder for you. The harder your money works, the higher interest it earns, and then the more money you make long term. And again, that can compound to just millions and millions and millions of dollars over your life. So let's talk about 5 alternatives to just keeping your money in the bank, things that can help your money grow even without having to do a tremendous amount of higher risk activities. Now, in case you're curious, my name is Brendan Turner. I have 13,000 rental units. I've been invested in real estate since 2007, went through the collapse, climbed out of it, and today have $1 billion in real estate, have over 150 employees. I run a thing called the Better Life Tribe where we teach real estate investors how to scale. So I am deeply ingrained in this. I've done 500 episodes of the Bigger Pockets podcast interviewing people about real estate. So I know a thing or two about what I'm saying here. And one thing that almost all successful real estate investors have in common is they don't just have cash sitting there doing nothing. So here are 5 things you can do to get your money working harder for you. Now, number 1 has nothing to do with investing whatsoever. It has to do with paying off debt. Look, if you're getting 2% or even 4% in a checking account or a savings account, you might feel like you're doing pretty good. But if you've got an 8% loan on a car payment, if you've got a house mortgage at 7%, 6%, if you have any credit card at 22%, if you've got any outstanding debt, student loans, whatever, chances are you are paying a higher interest on that debt than you are from what you'd make from a bank account. So what I encourage people to do is take as much as you can of your income where you feel comfortable, again, you want to keep a little bit, and dump it into paying off debt. So not only are you getting that immediate boost of actual income to your life, like more money because you're paying off debt, which has a higher interest than what you would be making. So not only are you in a better financial position, your credit score improves and your overall financial health improves. And as your debt goes down, more opportunities exist for investing in deals that make more money, which is what we're gonna get to in just a second. Now, how do you pay down your debt? My favorite strategy is actually the tried and true debt snowball that Dave Ramsey makes popular. Now, Dave Ramsey and I disagree on using debt to buy real estate. Now, we disagree strongly on that, But I fully agree with him on getting out of debt by using the debt snowball. That basically says take all your debts, credit cards, your house, your everything, line all of it up, and then tackle the smallest balance first. So if you've got a credit card, a Macy's card with $200 on it, take that one out first. Then you take all the money you were paying on that card, maybe $20 a month, throw that towards the next debt along with all your other money, and then tackle that one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Now, whether you go the full debt snowball and actually pay off your primary residence, I'll leave that up to you. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense, but from a risk and happiness standpoint, there can be some benefits to doing so. But again, getting that debt paid off as soon as possible is super, super important. It also just frees up your mind, the mental real estate up here, to be able to go out and tackle bigger things when you don't have that weight of debt dragging you down. The second thing I would do with my money instead of keep it in a bank is to, of course, buy rental properties. Now, I've been buying rental properties now for almost 20 years. I love it. Again, I said earlier, I got 13,000 doors. I must love it. Why do rental properties matter so much? Well, first of all, there's 4 ways you make money with rentals. Number 1, monthly cash flow. Every single month, if you buy the right property, you can make a profit. Now, ideally, that profit is higher than what you'd get from the bank. Just from the cash flow, you should be getting at least 5%, if not 8 or 10, maybe even higher, from the properties that you buy in just pure cash flow. But that's not the only way you make money in real estate. The second thing you get is appreciation. Over time, real estate tends to appreciate. Now, yes, it goes down, but over time, on average, it goes up and down, but in an upward trend. Just look at anybody who bought a house 40 years ago and ask them if they sold it, ask them if they wish they would have kept it. Everybody wishes they would have kept it because real estate tends to always go up over time, over a long enough span. Historically, appreciation's been 3 to 5% depending on your area. And you might be saying, well, that's the same as what I'm getting from the bank account. Yeah, but remember the cash flow? That adds a few percent, maybe 5% to 10% there, plus the 3 to 5% in appreciation. But let's remember that you're not buying the real estate for all cash. You typically use a loan to buy real estate. This is one of the key benefits of real estate is that leverage piece. So if you buy a property worth, let's say $500,000, but you only put $100,000 into it, and that property appreciates at 5%, your money actually grew by 25%. Does that make sense? Because you get the full benefit of appreciation even though you only put 20% down. I don't know if that math is perfectly right, but that's basically the gist, is you get a significantly higher benefit because you're using leverage. So comparing apples to apples of getting 5% from a checking account or a savings account or getting 5% from appreciation, it is by far better to get the value from appreciation. And then of course, there's the loan getting paid down. Let's say you bought a rental property, you held it for 30 years. It never went up in value. You never got cash flow. Every year you broke even. But over those 30 years, you paid the mortgage down to zero. That property now, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars, depending on what you paid for it, in equity, in profit. You could sell the property and make a ton of money. So the loan getting paid down is automatically adding money to your net worth every single month. And then the fourth benefit of real estate and owning rental properties is the tax benefit. If you make $100,000 from real estate investing, or you make $100,000 from your job, it's a drastic difference in your take-home pay. You keep all of it. Generally, if you do your tax strategy right, you can keep all that $100,000 on the real estate side, but your job, you're gonna lose 20, 30, maybe 40% of what you brought in straight to the government. And so you get to keep a lot more. What happens when you keep a lot more? It compounds into more and more deals. So now you're getting even a higher return. I would argue that with rental properties, you should be shooting for, on average per year, when you add all those things together, the cash flow, the appreciation, the loan getting paid down, you should be getting at least a 15% per year return on your money, if not 20, 30, 40 or more. Now, real estate investing is not easy, of course not. It requires some work, some knowledge, more than just sticking your money in a savings account. Again, if you want a better life down the road, if you want wealth, you're gonna have to put a little bit of work into it, and real estate actually isn't that complex. Most people can figure it out. I have 6, 7 businesses right now, real estate being one of them. Real estate investing is by far the easiest of the businesses that I run. Real estate investing is super simple at its core, and anybody can learn it. Doesn't matter what you come from, doesn't matter how much money you start with, anybody can learn it. There's a million books, podcasts, resources, courses, everything to learn how to invest in real estate. So I'd highly encourage you to pick a niche that's gonna cash flow. When I talk about cash flow, I'm talking about really profit every single month. Now you might be wondering, is it even possible to cash flow in today's market? Interest rates are like 7%. It is, but probably not by buying that single family house that's $200,000 more than it was a year ago and then paying 7% interest on it. That's probably not gonna work. But there are a ton of these kind of fringe cash flow vehicles, things like renting by the room or assisted living, sober living houses, build to rent, and the list goes on and on. In fact, if you go over to Instagram and find me, Beardy Brandon, Beardy Brandon, shoot me a DM with one word that just says Fringe, Fringe. And I'll send you an ebook that's got 19 of these kind of cash flow vehicles, these kind of more pseudo weird real estate strategies that actually work in today's market for producing cash flow. You can get a good return in real estate investing right now if you're willing to put a little bit of work and effort into figuring out how to make it work. Now let's say you're not. Let's say you want to invest in real estate, but if you don't want to be a landlord, you don't want to deal with toilets and tenants, which by the way, you don't have to, you can hire a property manager, but let's say you really want to keep it passive. The third area I would want to put my money into, that I do put my money into, instead of a bank account, is investing passively into real estate. Now I'll give you a few ways you can do that. There are things called REITs, R-E-I-T, a real estate investment trust. It's just like a stock. You buy and sell shares just like you would a stock. You can do it on an app, you can do it through a broker, number of ways to do it. But a real estate investment trust, a lot of people invest together in these massive, giant, billion-dollar funds, and then they buy giant shopping malls and things like that. They're just giant property. Now the downside of that is the return is not as high as you're likely to get on your own. You're typically looking somewhere between 5 and 8% per year. Still better than a bank account, and probably more in line with the stock market. In fact, probably a little better than the average stock market investment, which I'm not gonna talk about stocks today because I'm personally not a huge fan of them. It's just not an interest of mine, so I don't do it. But REITs, kind of interesting. But here's an even better way to invest in real estate passively that can get you a much higher return, and that is investing in syndications. Now, what is a syndication? A syndication is where a private real estate investor like myself, I have a syndication, so I'll preface it with this. We go and gather money from hundreds of people, and then we go and buy big real estate deals. Like I specialize in mobile home parks and self-storage and a few other different asset classes. I mean, over 2,500 people have invested with Open Door Capital, my company, and we pool our money together, including me. I invest in every single deal, and we go buy these mobile home parks and these self-storage units. We manage them, we do the majority of the work, yet you, the investor, get the majority of the profits. Typically between 70 and 90% of the profits you actually take home. So why would I do that? Why would I not just get 100%? Because I bought $1 billion of real estate. There's no way I could buy even 10% of that on my own. I don't have that much money. Yet with you, I can buy $1 billion. And even if I'm giving away 70 to 90% of it, I'm still benefiting long-term better. Now, why would you do it? We're typically projecting anywhere between 15 and 20% average annual return, which is potentially twice that of what you get in a REIT, 3, 4, 5 times more than you're gonna get in a savings account. You have a real, actual hard asset, real estate, securing that money. I don't even get paid as a syndicator until you get paid big at the end. We've aligned our incentives, we're working together, and that's what I do as a syndicator. You don't have to invest with me. There's a lot of syndicators out there. Just find somebody you trust, somebody you believe can get through hard times, somebody who's smart, that has the right systems, that has a team. Look for that. And if you do want to know more about Open Door Capital and what we're doing there, just go to odcfund.com. You can check out some of our latest offerings there. Moving on to the fourth place I'd put my money instead of a bank. Private lending. So what is private lending? Well, if you've ever watched those house flipping TV shows where they take a nasty house, they buy it for cheap, they fix it up, and then they resell it for a whole lot more money down the road, those are house flippers. Well, how does a house flipper get all the money in order to flip a house? They get private loans from individuals just like you. Now, typically rates are between 10 and 12%, sometimes a little lower, sometimes a little higher. But as a private lender to a house flipper, you can typically get between, again, 10 and 12% on your money. Now, you gotta find the right flipper who you know is not going to disappear with your money and is actually going to do the work, but being a lender to them can be super advantageous in a number of ways, and it's completely passive. As long as they do their job right, you're fine. And you get a lien on the property. So let's say the flipper doesn't do a good job. They just stop working on the property, they screw up. You can actually foreclose, take the property over, and then hire a contractor to fix up the property and get your money back. Now, I'm not saying you want to do that, but it's a nice backstop or insurance for yourself. Something going wrong. In fact, I love this so much. In fact, at the last Open Door Capital fund that we did, Fund 11, I don't know when you're watching this video, but Fund 11, we actually put about 1/3 of our fund into these type of loans. Why? Because they produce cash flow from day one. Like right away, we have investors paying us cash flow. And so we combine that with some other higher growth opportunities like mobile home parks and self-storage into one fund. And now we get the benefits of both. We get cash flow right away, and we have long-term growth and appreciation potential. All right, number 5, and this one I'll admit I have the least experience with, but I'm a big fan of it, and I've had a number of friends and family members that have done this, and that is to buy a business. You see, a business is an asset that produces both cash flow and can grow bigger over time. You can even sell it eventually. You can also build a business, but I want to talk specifically about buying a business right now. Now you might be wondering,
Brandon, don't 90% of businesses fail?
that's probably true. I mean, I've heard that stat before. I don't know if it's actually true, but I've heard that stat, and I understand why. Because 99% of people are not willing to learn how to run a business. There's a great book out there called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and the whole book basically can be summed up in this line. Just because you can bake a cake doesn't mean you can run a bakery. They are two different skill sets. Majority of business owners really are just cake bakers who know how to bake a cake and then they think they can run a business. But here, let me give you another stat then. Did you know while 90% of businesses fail, did you know 90% of franchises succeed? Well, why would they have such a high success rate when businesses fail? Because they're actual businesses with systems, processes, people. They run it like an actual business. Now, I'm not saying you have to go and do a franchise, but it's definitely not a bad option. Franchises can produce a significant return on investment, higher than you're ever going to get from a savings account. And so buying a business, or again, using your money to build a business, can be a great way to generate significantly higher returns than you're going to get from a bank account. All right, was this helpful? If it was, give me a little thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel, Beardy Brandon. I'm gonna be laying out a lot of advice for building wealth without losing your soul, and I'd love to have you follow along.